mentioned in your testimony that last month, the fiscal year 2008 allotment of H-1B visas for skilled foreign-born employees was exhausted 6 months before the start of the fiscal year. That means that there are at least an 18-month wait for new visas. Can you help the committee understand the implications of this situation for a technology company like yours that might hear from a good customer that they intend to double their order next year?
Yeah. It's quite simple. If I have a customer that would like to do more business with us, and I have a vast shortage of engineers that I can hire into my company, I'll give you a real example. We recently hired 2 college graduates, foreign nationals. They can stay here for a year under a practical work visa. We were not able to get them a visa in the latest allotment. And because of this, because of the timing, I can have them for a year, and if they don't win the next lottery, even if they do, there's going to be a gap in time where they're going to have to leave the country. It's incredibly disruptive, and for a small business, too, it gives us pause as to whether we can even take the risk and the investment in hiring these great people.
Sure. Ms. Story, in your testimony, you talk about the ordeal that you face regarding some of the problem with our current verification system, both at the federal and state level. So my question is, do you support an electronic or telephonic verification system that will provide greater certainty that you are provided with legally authorized workers?
Yes, as long as we not only being electronically, it also we need to be able to do it by the telephone, because some hiring is not done in an office, it's done out in the field. It needs to be simple. The number of acceptable documents must be reduced to a few. We must make sure that it prevents identity fraud. The verification system must give fast confirmation as we hire seasonal workers that come and go. It's got to work fast for us, because when a crop's ready to harvest, to wait 30 days is not the answer for us. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, when we hire these people, we also have to provide housing. And if someone's moved in and all of a sudden after the process, how do I get them out? And I've turned away somebody else that probably had proper documentation.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, about 12% of the construction industry's workforce is undocumented employees. That number percentage is even higher for many other industries. In agriculture, it is 13%, food manufacturing, 14%, and in private household, it is as high as 21%. With such a large number contributing to the total workforce, some have suggested an earned legal status for these workers will have the least damaging effect on our economy. What options are available to integrate these workers who are already here?
Well, integration, I mean, in the larger sense, has to be part of this equation as well. I mean, and one of the benefits of allowing people a path to permanent status. I mean, I think there is a role for a temporary worker program for truly seasonal temporary jobs. But an over-reliance on the temporary worker program, particularly for jobs that are permanent, I think cuts off our ability to incorporate these people into our society. Language acquisition, home ownership, economic development, those are the keys to integration. Giving people the tools and the resources that they need to become part of our communities, both from a communication as well as from an ownership perspective, is an essential part of the value that we've gained from immigration. I certainly would like to see us have more carrots and not a lot more sticks when it comes to integration.
But Mr. Johnson, what would you tell opponents who believe that this is rewarding those who have cheated the system?
Well, I would say that those people who are in the United States in an undocumented status, I think that there is a sort of agreeing with Congressman Gutierrez. I think there is a penalty to be paid for that, but that penalty has to be proportional to the offense. And I think we also, quite frankly, need to keep in mind that victims, or the immigrants themselves, are also victims of our dysfunctional immigration system. They are drawn here by the help wanted sign that our economy hangs at the border. And for the most part, they come through the back door because the front door is closed. I think we have a responsibility to create a system that allows them to come through the front door. Shifting all of the responsibility for our dysfunctional immigration system onto to immigrants, I think is just that, avoiding our own responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Davis? I'll recognize Mr. Shabbat.
Let me start with you, Mr. Silvertooth, if I can. If the cap on temporary H-2B visas was raised, what level would you recommend to make a real difference?
Well, currently we're operating under an extension of that program that's set to expire this September, in which workers that have been in the program for the previous 3 years are exempt from that cap. NRCA is a member of a coalition that's advocating for an extension of that program. We think that makes sense. But the way I would answer this question is this. The way you need to look at the H-2B visa program is to understand that we have shortages in permanent labor in this country, and then we have shortages in truly seasonal work in that. What I would probably recommend is that we have some type of market regulator that looks at the vitality of these industries on a yearly basis, what their particular needs are, look at the regional variations in terms of need. For instance, agriculture is not covered by H-2B, but there are certain industries that would be covered, such as seafood processing, the Eastern Shore. This is a big issue for them. If they have a bumper crop coming up that season, there may need to be an adjustment on that. Similarly, we'd have to look at what our tourism demands are in the country. So I think 66,000, if you have this exemption for previous workers, is a workable system. But there would need to be some type of market regulator and take a look at it in a couple of years. The other thing that I would recommend in terms of the H-2B program is there needs to be particular attention paid to the processing of H-2B visas. The system is currently in a state of crisis. In Mexico, the largest processor of visas in that country is in the Monterrey Consular Office. They just decided that earlier this year, or at the end of last year, that they would stop processing visas for the season. And it took congressional intervention to get them to resume that. You've also got problems in regional DOL offices here in the country. We're having a devil of a time in the Chicago and Atlanta offices in terms of delays.